And step number 4, which is the governmental review, and the last step, step 5, which is the post-marketing safety monitoring. So now we will start with step 1, which is the discovery and development. This step is carried out for the innovator brand products only. So that means for the generic products, they will not carry this step. In this step, the researchers try to identify the disease. After that, in the laboratory, the researchers try to begin their work by identifying the new drug. The new drug, they will try to make several designs. The several designs of the new drug will do several actions, either to stop or revert the effect of the disease. After early testing, only a small number of compounds look promising and call for further studies. So that means during this step, the company and the researchers will try to develop several molecules, but at the end, new molecules from these suggested proposals of several molecules will complete for the next steps. During the new drug development, the researchers conduct several experiments to gather information on how the drug is absorbed, how the drug is distributed, metabolized, and excreted, as well what is the mechanism of the action of the drug, what is the best dosage. So at this step, the researchers will discover the disease and as well try to identify.
Asmaa, sorry to interrupt you. We are unable to see your screen.
Bayan, can you please confirm, do you have access to my shared screen?
Okay, we are sharing full screen. Isn't it clear?
No, it is not visible.
Not visible. Dr. Asmaa, can you escape your presentation and share it again one more time? Because it's clear for me, but I don't know what's the problem.
I think there are 2 screens available, so someone should select the other screen.
I think I am from my side. I am sharing the screen well, so if can, for the participant who is facing some obstacles, try to log out and log in again.
Okay, I think there's another problem that you had entered, I think, from 2 browsers, right? Or not?
No, I'm entering from one browser only.
Okay.
Yes,
so can you share it again, please, Doctora? Can you share your screen again?
Okay, I will stop sharing and reshare it again.
Yes, because there's some people who started to see the screen in full screen. I don't know. There's someone who's saying that it's full screen for them now. I don't know.
No problem, Z.
Okay, please, anyone, if you can start see the full screen, please enter yes in the chat box.
Now I'm sharing my screen. Please
is it
confirm that you have access.
Please confirm. We have a lot of yeses, yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Dr. Asmaa.
Welcome. So as we said in step number 1, in the discovery and development, the researchers try to identify the disease, and as well in the laboratory they try to do some experiments in order to see what is the proposed new drugs which can be used to stop or revert the effect of the disease. During this step, they try to know how the drug will be absorbed and how it will be distributed, metabolized and excreted, and what is the mechanism of action of the new molecule, what is the best dosage form. This is related to step number 1. Once the researchers will gather all this information and they will decide what is the final proposed new drugs which will move to the next step, which is step number 2, preclinical research. In this step, the innovator drug, so that means step number 2, clinical research, doesn't generic drugs. During this step, the researchers do several experiments, whether it will be in vivo or in vitro examinations. In this step as well, the innovator drug has several potential which can cause toxicity. So that means the researcher will confirm whether is there any fatal or harmful toxicity or not. After that, the researcher will try to make some laboratory and animal testing before testing the drug in the people in order to answer some basic questions related to the safety. As once they will start the examinations on the people, they had some gathered information that they can start in a safe manner to do their experiments on the people. As we said, there are two types of studies which will be carried for the preclinical researches. The first one is in vitro, and the second one is the in vivo test. These studies will provide the researchers with more detailed information about the dosing and toxicity levels. And according to the findings, they will have a confirmed information whether they can use the drug to be tested in people or not. After that, the researchers will move to clinical research step number 3. At this step, the innovator products will go through several examinations and several tests on people. And for the generic products, from here, the companies which produce these generic products can start their first researches and studies, which is the clinical research. So that means at this step, the product will be used for several groups or several selected criteria from several people to assure that the product can be used in a safe manner and the product is effective as well. The clinical trials follow a specific study plan. This study plan is called a protocol. During this study plan, the researchers decide what is the selection criteria of participants, what is their numbers, how long the study will last, whether there will be a control group or not. So that means the clinical trials follow a typical series from early to small scale phase 1 studies to late stage to large scale phase 3 studies. So as we can see in this slide, phase number 1, at this phase, the researchers will select some participants as a volunteers or a healthy people. The number of participants will be from 20 to 100. The length of the study will be for several months. During this duration, the researchers will try to find whether the proposed product is safe and what is the appropriate dosage to be used for the treatment. Actually, the total number of drugs which will be successfully moved to phase number 2 will be about 70% of the innovative drugs which can move to the next phase.
Dr. Asmaa, you're muted, so we couldn't hear you.
Yes, I think someone had muted me. Okay, no problem. During phase number 2, in this phase, the researchers will select a larger number of participants from several hundreds patients, and the length of the study will be from several months to 2 years. During this duration, the researchers will try to assure that the product is effective and what is the side effects which can be appeared after the administration of the proposed drug. The final total number of the drugs which will pass this phase will be about 33% from the total proposed new molecules. And then the product will move to the phase number 3, which is the safety and efficacy phase. During this phase, the researchers will try to assure that they can monitor the adverse drug reactions and to assure that the product is effective as well. The total number of participants and volunteers will be from 300 to 3,000 patients. and the length of the study will be from 1 year to 40 years. And approximately 25% from the drugs will be successfully moved to the last phase, which is the post-marketing safety monitoring phase. Before any company, whether the company produced the innovator or the generic product, start phase number 4, which is the post-approval surveillance, the company will compile the registration documentation and the results of the step number 1, which is the discovery and development, as step number 2, which is the preclinical, and the results of the clinical research, which is the step number 3, and they will submit all these data for the FDA in order to assess and evaluate the results and the findings which they found during these 3 phases. And once the company will grant the approval, then the company can start the phase number 4, which is the post-approval surveillance. So once the company will grant the marketing authorization license after the evaluation of the submitted documentation from the FDA, they can start doing the phase number 4 study, which is related to the safety and efficacy of the product, in order to assure that the selected dosage form and the selected concentration and the selected product is safe and effective and can used for the treatment of the disease. So this is the story of the diseases and medicines, and we already explained with each other the 4 steps of this story. In this slide, we will know what is the available department in the manufacturing sites and what is the responsibility of each department and how they will support us in the registration cycle and how they will support the regulatory affairs team. Most of the manufacturing sites has a department which is named the Business Development Department, and the second is the Research and Development. And there is another important department with this, which is the supply chain and the warehouse department, production and engineering, quality assurance department, quality control, pharmacovigilance, medical affairs, artwork and labeling department, regulatory affairs department, and finally the most important department which is the marketing department. As we know, there is a life cycle for the drug product. So the first step that the business development will try to make a survey in the market and see what is the disease and what is the proposed goal of the company, whether they will invest and put some investment to discover a new molecule for a treatment for a specific disease in a specific market or not. So once they will do their activities and take the decision to start selecting the molecules or start focusing on a specific treatment to find or to innovate a new molecule, they will coordinate with the research and development team, and they will ask them to start their activity either to try to discover a new molecules or try to develop a generic product to be used for the treatment of the disease. After that, the research and development team will contact the supply chain and ask them to provide them with the required active ingredients, the required excipients, the required equipment and facilities to be used during the manufacturing process and used during the quality control testing. Once the supply chain will contact all the suppliers and all the manufacturing sites, and the shipment will arrive to the manufacturing site, all these shipments shall be stored in the warehouse. So they will store all the packaging materials, they will store all the raw materials, they will store all the arrived equipments or facilities to be used during the manufacturing or quality control or batch release or stability testing. After that, the production team will start the production of the product with the assistance of the engineering team in order to monitor the environment and to monitor the temperature and the humidity of the production area. During the manufacturing process, we will find the main responsibility of the team of the quality assurance, as during the production, there is a team which is responsible for the in-process control. They will take random samples at the beginning of the manufacturing and at the mid and at the end in order to assure that the product is produced and complying to the specified criteria of the finished product, and is complying to the GMP regulations as well. And there is another team, which is the process validation team, which is responsible to validate the manufacturing process. And there is another team in the quality assurance team, which is responsible for the creation and compilation of the documentation related to the manufacturing process and related to the environment and related to the equipment as well. And there is another team, which is the quality control team. In this team, there are several sub-teams. One of them will be responsible for the methodology and validation. They will propose what will be the method of analysis, what will be the specified specification and method of analysis to be used for the active ingredient, excipients, for the packaging materials in order to confirm they are complying to their specification. What is the microbiological examinations to be tested for each product? What is the stability study design, and what is the specified specification and method of analysis of the primary and secondary packaging materials, and how to qualify the received raw materials in order to assure they are complying to their specified limits. And as well, for the raw material team, they will assure that the received active and excipients are complying to their in-house parameters. There is another team, which is the pharmacovigilance team. As we said in the previous slides, once the product is administered by the patient or by the people, maybe some side effects can be arised. So there must be a department which will follow up the raised side effects, and they will collect this data in order to evaluate whether the raised side effects are fatal or can be monitored during the treatment cycle. So the pharmacovigilance team will be responsible to report the adverse drug reactions, and responsible to assure that if there is any complaint will be recorded and will be followed, and in order to see what is the appropriate action to be decided, and whether is there any action to be taken from the company to withdraw the product or recall the product. They assure that the process is going well, and they are monitoring all these processes. There is another team, which is the medical affairs team. This team is responsible to create and to compile the scientific information which will be provided in the patient information leaflet, or will be exhausted in the summary of product characteristics, which will be addressed to the physicians or healthcare providers, and to assure that the mentioned scientific information in the carton books or in the label or in the tube are complying to the regulations of the health authority that is specifying what is the criteria and what is the information to be mentioned in the packaging material. There is another department, which is the artwork and labeling. Already all of us know that there is a specific design for each product. So this department, artwork and labeling, will be responsible to design the final 3D dimension artwork or mock-up of the product, how it will look, what is the used colors which will be represented for the final samples to be represented for the patient. What are the dimensions of the carton books? What are the dimensions of the patient information leaflet of the label? So they will specify the criteria for all the packaging material, whether it will be secondary or primary packaging materials, whether it will be in direct contact with the product or indirect contact with the product. So they will be responsible for designing all these artwork of the packaging materials. And there is the Regulatory Affairs Department, which will be responsible to submit the registration documentation to the health authority in order to assure that their product is safe and effective and complying to the specified quality. And the last department is the marketing, which will be responsible to market and to launch the product to any specified territory. From this slide,
Dr. Asmaa, if you
Yes.
allow me, I just want to ask everyone to mute themselves because we have a little or some interruption in the background and we want a clear voice to hear Dr. Asmaa. Thank you for the amazing story about the medications. Thank you very much. I want to know more about our audience, if you allow me. So if everyone, if you're a student and after, Dr. Asmaa, if you can return to the previous slide, please. Just we can move things a little. Okay, if you are a student or you are willing to enter the field of pharmaceuticals, please tell us which let's say role you are interested in the most, and if you are in working in the field of pharmaceutical industry, please tell us your working the field that you are working in, and share us something so we can know more about you. So please, if you are willing to work in the field of pharmaceuticals, please write to us. Okay, we have RNA and BV. Nice combination. How many students do we have? If you are a student, please write student. RA and the QA. Wow, RA, BV and the QA. A lot of them. Okay, interested in pharmacovigilance and regulatory. Good luck. RA manager, QA, RA. The majority are from RA. Okay. RA. The majority are from the field of regulatory affairs. We have import and clearance, so welcome on board. Okay, RA and BV. I think RA and BV are interrelated, are much related to each other, because I found a lot of people who are working in with the same or both jobs at the same time. So they are responsible in regulatory and BV. Okay, someone is looking for a job, so good luck. We have students. Good luck. I would like to ask our colleague Rafa to add the link for the registration in our listserv, so you can have our updates. Now Rafa will send you the registration link to the listserv. Thank you, Rafa. And please, if you have any questions till the end of this session, please write it in the chat box so we can refer back to it at the end of our session. Thank you, Dr. Asmaa. Please, can you proceed? Now we will enter with the CTD and eCTD skeleton and module, right?
Yes. Okay. At the beginning, we will know some detailed information regarding Regulatory Affairs Department and what is the main activities to be performed by Regulatory Affairs and what is the role of Regulatory Affairs Department in any pharmaceutical company or any medicinal company. Regulatory Affairs Department is a professional developed by the company itself. This team will be responsible for the discovery, testing, the company will be responsible for the discovery, testing, and manufacturing and marketing of the product. So once they will compile and prepare all the documentation related to the discovery, tasting, manufacturing, and marketing of the product. The regulatory affairs will compile all this documentation and submit it to the health authority in order to be evaluated to assure that the product is safe and can be used and will provide the proposed efficacy, whether the product will be a pharmaceutical product, veterinary, medical device, or pesticide and cosmetic products. So that means the regulatory affairs is the link between the pharma companies or the medicinal companies and the global health authority. So the responsibility of regulatory affairs team that in order to market any product in a specific territory, we have to grant a marketing authorization license. This marketing authorization license will be granted from the health authority. How we will grant this license? We have to submit a registration dossier for the product, including all the information, the quality information, the clinical information, non-clinical information, and to submit some specific administrative information. And all this information will be evaluated by the health authority. And once we will pass the evaluation of the documentation and pass the analysis of the product itself, we will grant the marketing authorization license and we can start launching our product in this territory. So the reason behind having a marketing authorization, the health authority needs to assure that the product is safe and the product is effective and has the high quality to be used by the people. So that means the regulatory affairs will be responsible to submit and to compile and prepare the registration dossier of the drug product and to prepare as well the registration dossier of the manufacturing site. In some specific territories, there is a specific regulation to register the company, the manufacturing site will be responsible to manufacture the product, or the company or the manufacturing site which will be responsible for the quality control testing and for the batch release as well. So once we will grant the GMP certificate or the marketing authorization license, by this we will be able to launch our product. So this is the responsibility of the regulatory affairs department to assure that all the compiled documentation, once it will be evaluated by the health authority, it can be successfully pass the evaluation and we can grant the marketing authorization without any rejection. The registration dossier is named CTD, NeeS, and eCTD, and we will know in the following slides what is the abbreviation of CTD, NeeS, and eCTD, and what is the history of this abbreviation. According to ICH, and we will see in the next slide what is the ICH organization, the CTD is the abbreviation of Common Technical Document. It is a harmonized format for submission of detailed information on medicines to regulatory authorities for the purposes of obtaining approval to market a product. So as we said, in order to launch our product in any specific territory, we have to submit a harmonized documentation. This documentation will be represented to the health authority, and the health authority will revise and evaluate this documentation, and once we will pass the evaluation, we will be granted the marketing authorization license, which will assist us to launch the product. So this is the definition of CTD. For NeeS, it is the abbreviation of non-eCTD electronic submissions. It is based on electronic table of contents, bookmarks, hyperlinks, and eCTD folder structure is used. Most of us use several websites. We find in the website there is an electronic table of contents. Once we click a specific content, automatically it will be navigated to the detailed information related to this content or related to this title or related to this section. So this is the electronic table of contents. The second criteria in the NeeS is the bookmarks. For any documentation in the PDF file, we can find in the left hand, there is an electronic table of contents, including a hierarchy or tree structure for the table of contents included in this documentation. So it is named the bookmarks. And hypertext link, we can see during reading any reference in the website, there is a blue text. Once we click the blue text, we will be navigated to the more detailed information related to this link. So that means NeeS, it is the electronic submission of CTD, while eCTD, it is the electronic common technical documentation. It is the electronic version of CTD. And we will see in the next slide what are the differences between these three submissions. But at the beginning, let's see what is the CTD history.
Dr. Asmaa, if you allow me, because there's some people who can't hear us well. Can I ask everyone to mute themselves, please? And if you can hear us clearly, please write clear in the chat box so we can assure that everyone can hear this clearly. Good, great. Thank you, Dr. Asmaa, please. The floor is yours. Yeah.
The CTD history, at the beginning, the EMA, the European Medicine Agency, tried to compile a specific documentation. Once the company will register their product, they have to follow these regulations and submit the dossier according to the implemented regulations of registration. And as well for the Food and Drug Administration, US FDA, they tried to specify some specific documentation for the quality and some specific documentation required for the clinical and assessment for the non-clinical studies. And the third health authority is the Ministry of Health of Japan. At this stage, there is an organization which is named International Council on Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Registration of Pharmaceutical Products, which is named ICH. ICH tried to link and to make a joint effort between the three regulatory agencies, EMA, FDA, and Ministry of Health of Japan, and they released the first CTD regulations and guidance of registration for the medicinal products. The ICH represented the CTD in a triangle. This triangle is organized to 5 modules. Module 1, which is the red colored triangle, it is the regional administrative information. So that means it is related to each territory. Each health authority will specify what is the requested documentation to be represented in Module 1. Starting from Module 2, 3, 4, and 5, it is a common format which is harmonized, staple, standard format for all the global health authorities. So once I will prepare from Module 1 until Module 5, the same documentation will be represented to all the global health authorities which are implementing CTD. Module 3 is the quality module. Module 4 is the module which includes the non-clinical study report, and Module 5 is the clinical study report data. Module 2 is a summary and overview for Module 3 and 4 and 5. So as we can see in the triangle that Module 3 and 4 and 5 are the basic modules in the CTD, and Module 2 is a summary for these 3 basic modules, while Module 1 is only administrative regional information related to each health authority. So what is the differences between the submission forms? As we said, that CTD will include the 5 modules, and these 5 modules will be represented to the health authority in a paper format. So we will print the registration dossier in order to be submitted to the health authority. So that means we don't need any specific program to compile the hard copy, as we will represent it as a final hard printed documentation. We will need only separators in order to separate between the 5 modules and to separate between the sections included in each module. And regarding the submission will be a hard copy submitted to the health authority, including the 5 modules. And for the NeeS, once any health authority will announce that they will implement the NeeS guidelines, so that means we have to submit an electronic CD. This CD will include PDF files These PDF files will have 3 criteria. We'll have the electronic table of contents, we'll have a bookmarks, and we'll have a hyperlinks. So that means we will need a specific program. We will need to have, during the compilation process of the registration dossier, we need to have Acrobat Professional in order to be able to represent the PDF files with the specified criteria, which is the electronic table of contents, bookmarks, and hyperlinks. While the eCTD is an electronic format of submission, in order to be published to the health authority, we need a specific software. This software will be created using an XML backbone, and this submission or publishing process cannot be performed without the software. So that means we will have to purchase the software, and as well we will have to have at our side Acrobat Professional program in order to compile the PDF files, which will be uploaded in the software and represented and published to the health authority. So that means the 5 modules will be represented in CTD format and will be represented in NeeS and eCTD. The differences between the 3 submissions is how we will represent the data to the health authority, whether we will represent the 5 modules as a hard copy printed documentation, or will be represented as a CD, or will be published using a specific software for the publishing process. So this is the difference between these 3 submission forms. In the following slide, we will see the flow chart of drug registration in GHC and Gulf countries. GHC is the responsible authority for the centralized registration in Gulf Health Council. The first step, which the Regulatory Affairs Department will do, they will submit, you will have to submit an application to the health authority that you need to register a specific molecule, and this molecule will be used for the treatment of a specific disease, and what is the concentration, what is the active ingredient, what is the dosage form, what is the proposed treatment to be used by this product, whether the manufacturing company is the same marketing authorization holder, is there any specific entities or specific companies will be responsible for the quality control testing, another company is responsible for the batch release. So we have to specify the responsibility of each entity, and we will submit the application to the health authority, and the health authority will validate the application and see whether this molecule is accepted to start its registration process. Once we will receive the feedback of the health authority that they accepted the application, we will be notified for the date of submission of the dossier, whether it will be submitted as a CTD or NeeS or eCTD. At this appointment, we will submit the 5 modules. So that means we will submit the information related to the quality, which is represented in module 3, and the information related to the safety and efficacy, which is represented in module 4 and 5. And as well, we will submit samples for analysis purposes, which will be analyzed by the analytical department in the health authority. And another registration department in the health authority will review the documentation related to the quality, safety, and efficacy. And during the evaluation of this documentation, they will assure that our manufacturing site is registered, and already we have been inspected, and we have a valid GMP certificate. In case the production line hasn't been inspected by the health authority, they will ask to appoint for a specific inspection for this production line to assure that we are complying to these GMP regulations. Once we will pass the step of the evaluation of the registration documentation and the analysis process of our product, if there is any inquiry by the health authority, they will send a deficiency letter, including the raised inquiries, and we have to respond to all these raised inquiries and to satisfy the health authority with all the requested documentation. And once we will provide them with the documents, the final decision whether to register our product, and we will be granting a marketing authorization approval, and we can launch our product, or we will cannot market our product as it will be rejected because we were not able to satisfy the health authority with the requested registration documentation. So this is the summary for the flow chart of drug registration in any global health authority. As we thought that ICH represented the CTD and NeeS and eCTD in a triangle. The first module in this triangle is module 1, and module 1 is the regional administrative information. And from its name, we can see that it is a specific information for each region. Most of the regions will ask for specific documentation, which is the cover letter and the application form. Once I will submit my dossier to any territory, I will have to attach a cover letter. I will attach an application form, product information, which will be covering the SMPC summary of product characteristics, and cover the labeling information. What is the text to be included in the carton books? What is the text to be included in the label? What is the text to be included in the tube? If there is any written data in the aluminum tube, what is the information to be included in the patient information leaflet, PIL, and what is the design, the mock-up or the artwork of my product? What is the design of the carton books? What is the design of the PIL? What is the design of the label? So I have to attach all these documentation. Some specific territories will ask for certificates. They will ask to submit a price certificate, a CPP, GMP, certificate of suitability, letter of access, alcohol and pork-free declaration, and certificate of analysis related to the active ingredient and to the finished product as well. Some regions asked to submit environmental risk assessment, how we manage the wasting materials and how we get rid of them, whether we get rid of them by monitoring the effects which can result from the process of getting rid of the items, whether it is the wasting items from the production or the wasting items from the quality control testing, how we get rid of these materials. Some health authorities asked to submit the pharmacovigilance documentation, the pharmacovigilance site master file, and the risk management plan. And another territories asked to submit the information about the expert person for the quality data and non-clinical and clinical data. So that means these data will not be asked or will not be requested by all the health authorities. It depends on the final implemented regulations of each health authority. So we have to check the checklist and the table of contents of module 1 for the territory at which I will submit my registration dossier in order to assure what is the final documentation needed to be represented in module 1. But it is the common, in this slide, we have seen the common requested documentation in most of the global health authorities. Module 2, as we said, it is the summary and overview module. In this module, we will represent to the health authority a summary about module 3. So as we see that in section 2.3, the quality overall summary, so we represent the summary for the quality information related to the drug substance and related to the drug product. And 2.4, we represent the non-clinical overview about module 4 and the overview of module 5. And as well, we submit the summary related to the non-clinical studies and the clinical studies as well. So that means we prepare module 2 after compiling and preparing module 3, 4, and 5, as we have to summarize and to write the overview of the prepared module 3, 4, and 5. Module 3, it is the quality module. It is the basic important module in CTD. This module is composed of two main parts. The first part is the 3-2S, drug substance part, and 3-2P part, which is the drug product part. And there is some regional information which can be asked by several health authorities. But according to the ICH, the harmonized section and the standard sections, 3-2S and 3-2P. Module 3 is named the CMC module as it includes all the information related to the chemistry of the active ingredient and the manufacturing process of the active ingredient and the drug product, and how we control the active ingredient and control our product and control the excipients as well. The sequence and the numbering style is a standard format for all the health authorities. So the first section is 3.1, then it is followed by 3-2S, and then 3-2P, and then appendixes is the last section to be represented in module 3. In the following table, we will see a summary for the contents represented in the drug substance section 3-2S and 3-2P section. As we can see in the table that for the drug substance section, it consists of 7 subsections. The first section is the 3-2S general information, then 3-2S2 manufacture, and 3-2S3 characterization, 3-2S4 product control, which is the active ingredient control, 3-2S5 reference standards and container closure system, 3-2S6, and the stability study, 3-2S7. 3-2S, that means we will represent all the documentation related to the drug substance, related to the active ingredient. If my product includes 2 active ingredients, so I have to represent all the documentation related to the first active ingredient, and then to represent the 7 subsections related to the second active ingredient. 3-2P, that means we have to represent all the documentation related to the drug product. We have to represent the description and composition of the final finished product, which will be administered by the patient. What is the pharmaceutical development, 3-2P2, all the development performed by the laboratory and the research and development department will be included in this section. 3-2P3, the manufacture, 3-2P4, excipients controls, 3-2P5, product control. Of the product control will mean the final finished product control, 3-2P6, reference standard, 3-2P7, container closure system, and the last section is the 3-2P8, which is the separate study of the drug product. So if we will see more detailed information about the drug substance information, we have to represent the nomenclature of the active ingredient in section 3-2S1, general information, and we will represent the structure and the general properties of this active ingredient. In section 3-2S2, we will represent all the manufacturing sites and what is the responsibility of each site, whether the site is responsible to produce the active ingredient or to produce or to do the quality control testing or the release or to produce some specific synthetic materials used during the manufacturing process of the API. So we have to identify all the entities and what is the responsibility of each manufacturing site. In section 3-2S3, each active ingredient has a specific method of identification. So we have to represent what the documentation which is used to identify the active ingredient. And then 3-2S4, in this documentation, we will represent the documentation related to the active ingredient, how we monitor the specification, the analytical procedures, and the validation of analytical procedure, the batch analysis and justification of the specification. In section number 5, for each active ingredient, there is a specific used reference standard, whether we use a working standard, whether we use a pharmacopoeial standard for the active ingredient, for the related or impurities. So we have to specify what is the used reference standard and what is the source to be used during the analysis, and to attach their certificate of analysis. In section 3-2S6, all the packaging materials used to pack our active ingredient, whether it will be a primary or secondary packaging material, all the information related to the packaging material shall be represented in this section. So that means we have to represent the information related to the primary and secondary packaging materials used to pack our active ingredients. In the last section 3 to S7 stability study, so we represent in this section the stability study related to the active ingredient itself. In the following slide, we will see the requested documentation for the drug product. The first section is 2P1, description and composition of the drug product. So we have to explain what is the represented pack to the patient, and what is the included number of tablets, or what is the included number of capsules in the final pack, which will be represented to the patient. How does it look, the final tablet or the final capsules? And we will represent the composition of the active and the excipients used in the drug product, and what is the quantity per unit dose, and what is the function of each raw material used in the composition formula. In the second section, which is the pharmaceutical development, in this section, we will submit all the studies to support the formulation development, and to support the manufacturing process development, and to support all the specification criteria development before during doing our studies in the step 1 and step 2 and step 3 and 4, which we represented in the beginning of this session. In the third section, 3 to P3, we explain all the manufacturing sites involved in the manufacturing process of our final finished product, and all the sites responsible for the quality control testing, and all the sites responsible for the batch release of our product. In section 3 to P4, we represent all the raw materials and their specification and their method of analysis and their validation, whether the excipient will be existed in the final composition formula or will not appear in the final composition formula. We have to specify all the list of excipients. In the section 3 to P5, we will represent the specification, analytical procedure, validation of analytical procedure, and additional documentation related to our final finished product. For section 6, reference standard, we submit all the documentation related to the reference standard, whether it will be working or a pharmacopoeial standard used for the analysis of our product, whether we will perform the assay of the active ingredient, the assay of some specific preservative related substance. So we have to specify what is the source of the reference standard, whether it is a working standard, or what is the a secondary standard, or it will be a pharmacopoeial standard used for the assessment of these specific examinations, and we will attach the certificate of analysis of these specified reference standards. For section 7, the container closure system, as we said that this part is related to the drug product. So I will provide the health authority with all the documentation related to the primary packaging materials, related to the secondary packaging materials of my product. I will represent the specification, the method of analysis. I will represent the analytical validation. I will represent the certificate of analysis of my primary and secondary packaging materials. The last section, which is 3 to 8, I will submit to the health authority the stability study, which has been performed to my product according to the stability zone of the territory at which I will submit the registration dossier.
Dr. Asmaa, if you allow me, we have some questions. Do you prefer us answering them now or till the end of this session?
We can take a slide for module 3 and then we can stop and take the questions in order to represent to them all the information related to module 3, and then we can take the questions raised from the colleagues.
Okay, so please write all your questions in the chat box so we can answer them all at once. Thank you, Doctor.
Welcome. The last section, which is the standard section according to ICH guidelines, is the appendix section 3-A. In this section, we represent several documentation. The first documentation is related to the facility and equipments, advertising, agent safety evaluation, and excipients information. Some health authorities specify additional documentation and as additional data which is not implemented according to the ICH guidelines. So according to each health authority, we have to check Module 3 if they have a specific section, which is the regional information. Some health authority asked to represent to them the executed batch manufacturing record, which is named executed production documentation, the master production documentation. Some health authorities asked to submit raw data and chromatograms for stability study and for analytical method validation. And the last common section, according to ICH, is the literature references, only the references which we will use during compiling the 3-S section, which is the 3-S drug substance section, and 3-P section, and 3-A and 3-R if it is required by the health authority. We have to put the monograph or to attach the abstract or the article or the reference from which we compile the documentation starting from 3-S till 3-R. By this, we go to the end of Module 3. So if there is any raised inquiry by colleagues, we can take them, Payan, now.
Yes. Okay, we will start with the first question. So we have a question that's saying, what's the quantity of samples for registration in Gulf countries?
What is the quantity of what?
Of samples for registration in Gulf countries.
Okay, we have to read the regulations of the Gulf countries, as according to the dosage form of the product, we have to submit the total number of samples requested by the health authority. So it will differ from dosage form to another dosage form. So it depends on the dosage form and depends on the requirements of the each health authority.
Okay, so the number of samples or the registration samples depends on the dosage form, the country that we are registering in, and the regulations that are required there. How many batches are required for analysis? I think this is a wide question, right? And there's many countries.
If the colleague is referring to the number of batches to be presented to the health authority for analysis purpose during the evaluation of our dossier, we need to submit one batch. If he is referring to the required information to be submitted in our registration CTD dossier or NeeS or eCTD, we have to represent the documentation related to 3 batches.
Mm-hmm. So before registrations, we require 3 batches. At least 3 batches, I think, and after registration we will need one batch. Okay, the analytical method.
Not after registration. Before compiling our dossier to be submitted to the health authority, the company will manufacture 3 batches in order to represent the documentation of these 3 batches in the CTD dossier. And once we will submit the dossier for evaluation by the health authority, we will represent one batch with the specified total number of samples for analysis purposes by the health authority.
Okay, for analysis only, okay. The analytical method transfer reports are required in section S4 section. Are they required? S4 section, the analytical method transfer.
S is related to the drug substance. So I would like to confirm whether the question is related to the gathered information from the API or the active ingredient supplier, as in this case, we will not submit any analytical transfer documentation. But if the question is related to the drug product, yes, we have to submit the documentation related to the analytical transfer documentation once we will submit a renewal dossier or we will submit a variation submission package. So it depends whether the documentation is related to the active or related to the drug product. For the active, we will not submit any documents. We will submit the new drug substance section, including the 7 subsections, as there will be a new site which is responsible for the analytical methods. So I think the question is not complete to answer.
Okay, please, if you have any specific ramp up, if you have any specific point to ask, please write to us in the chat box so Dr. Asmaa can specifically answer your question. Okay, do you create NeeS by yourself or do you use a specific guidance for hyperlinks and bookmarks?
For bookmarks and hyperlinks, I think at the beginning, you will need some specific techniques to be learned. You can take it either from searching in Google, or IT team in your department can guide you how to create the bookmarks and how to create the hypertext link. And it is related to the Acrobat professional. So you will need the assistant either from the IT, or you try to use Google and search in Google how to create the bookmarks and how to create the hypertext links.
Okay. We have another question about the excipients. Let me check it. As excipients method validations are required, excipient method.
Yes, the excipients, if they are following the pharmacopoeial monograph, so in this case, we will not submit any validation documentation. But if during the analysis process, we are not following the pharmacopoeial monograph and we are following our specific in-house specification, so we have to submit the analytical validation documentation for these excipients.
Okay. NeeS could be prepared manually, but time-consuming. Is it correct?
Yes, correct.
Okay. I think the whole technology issue was created to use time effectively, and that's the main idea of the whole point of the technology for the reviewer and for the pharmacist to prepare the documents, right?
Yes, agreed.
Okay, حدا بقول لي مرحبا بيان بدنا السلايدز. So can you please, Doctor, share us? Is it possible to share the slides with the audience after
yes, for sure.
Thank
yes.
you. تكرم يا إسلام أو تكرم إن شاء الله بنشارككم السلايدز. For 3.2s part, are you using drug master file as received by the API supplier, or are you writing by yourself? The
okay.
drug, yeah.
For the 3.2s section, we represent the received drug master file from the manufacturing site of the active ingredient, or we attach the certificate of suitability as COS or CAP. In case my company, which is the drug product manufacturing site, we will follow the same analysis process and the same specification which is represented in the drug master file, so I will not represent the same data. In case if there any modification in the specification, I'm not following the same criteria specified by the active substance manufacturing site, so I have to submit the documentation which will be represented by the drug product manufacturing site. How my drug product manufacturing site will do the specification, how they will represent the analytical method procedures. So in this case, if I have any different information from the active substance manufacturing site, I have to represent the data with the two entities. The first entity is the DMF as received as it is from the active substance manufacturing site, and the second source will be the drug product manufacturing site how they will do the specification and the analytical method procedures and the analytical validation of the active ingredient.
Okay. Okay, what's the size of the finished product submission batch for solid dosage forms? So they have written or mentioned the solid dosage forms here.
Actually, it isn't a specific data to be represented or to be answered. Regarding the batch size to be represented in the CTD, it is a huge topic which needs a specific information to be represented. So I will try to provide you with some additional links with the presentation, which can support you to have an idea about the appropriate batch size to be represented for each dosage form.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you. We have another question: how to handle changes approval?
Each health authority has a specific regulations for the variation. So we have to go through the variation guidelines and read it carefully and specify what is the proposed changes in my product and what is the requested documentation to be represented in order to grant the approval from the health authority. So it is a big headache for each company, but we have to read the regional regulations of the variation of each health authority, and there is no common ICH guidelines for the variation. It is related to each health authority. They will specify what is the minor and what is the major variations and what is the requested documentation for each type of variation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, who shall provide the necessary information for dossier compilation?
For the dossier compilation?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, for the module 1, most of the documentation will be prepared and compiled by the regulatory affairs. Otherwise, we will ask some specific departments like Pharmacovigilance Department. I will ask them to provide me with the pharmacovigilance documentation. I will ask the artwork department to provide me with the specific artwork and the product information related to the PIL and SMPC. And for the remaining documentation, the regulatory affairs will be responsible to compile module 1. For module 3, I will collect the documentation of the drug substance from supply chain. I will ask the supply chain department to contact the active ingredient manufacturing site and provide me with the drug master file, COS, CEP, and attach it to 32S section. For 32P, I will collect the documentation from the several departments in my company. I will collect it from R&D and I will collect it from quality control, quality assurance. So all the technical quality departments will be responsible to provide me with this documentation. And I am, as a regulatory member, I will be responsible to compile and to revise all this documentation and to assure they are harmonized and they can be submitted and all the mentioned information are in line with each other. For module 4 and module 5, I will contact the specific departments, whether it will be research and development or clinical department in my company in order to represent module 4 and module 5. For module 2, the responsible person for the quality and the responsible person for the clinical and non-clinical data in my company will be responsible for providing me with the summary and overview and module 2, and I will check all these gathered information and assure that all the mentioned information are online with each other. So there is no one person responsible to create the dossier from scratch. All the departments will collaborate with each other and take the responsibility for regulatory affairs team to collect the documentation from each specific department and then to revise the documents and to assure it is compliant to ICH guidelines.
Amazing answer, actually. I hope it's clear for everyone now. In module, there's another question saying that in module 1, if we use alcohol as solvent in coating solution and it's represented in drug product specs as residual solvent and it's in ICH limit for class 3, can we submit a declaration letter for it?
Yes, we will specify what is the used quantity of this alcohol and what is the justification and the function of this alcohol, and whether this quantity within the specified limits of ICH or not. So I will mention all this information in the declaration, but I will not be able to mention that my product is free from alcohol, as actually my product include alcohol, but I will mention what is the function and purpose of using this alcohol.
Okay, in module 3 now, if we have 3 suppliers for the API, what's the situation here? Shall they submit part 3 part 3 times or 1 time?
The maximum allowed suppliers is 2 suppliers. So I have to represent two suppliers only with their respective drug master file or respective COS. And I will represent the drug substance information for these 2 suppliers only. I will not represent these 3 suppliers.
Okay, 2 suppliers according to ICH guidelines?
Yes.
Okay, someone didn't get the difference between NeeS and eCTD. NeeS and eCTD.
For eCTD, I will need a specific software. I have to purchase a specific software to be used in order to upload my documentation, and once I will upload my documentation, I will be able to publish it to the used portal of the health authority. So the documentation will be published to the health authority by using a specific software. For NeeS, we don't use a specific software, it is optional. We will represent to the health authority a CD, including the perned CTD from module 1 to module 5. We represent a soft copy as a perned documentation in a CD. We will not have to publish the dossier using a specific software. Payan, excuse me, can we please complete the presentation and then we can take the raised inquiries by the colleagues?
Yes, yes, of course.
We will start now in this slide with module 4. As we said, module 4 is the non-clinical study report. In this module, we represent all the studies related to the pharmacological testing, pharmacokinetics, and toxicology testing performed by the company. This module is requested by the innovator products. So that means for the generic molecules, we don't need to submit module 4. We will mention that our molecule is a generic molecule, which is a reference to the specified innovator product, and we will specify the name of this innovator product and the name of the marketing authorization holder and the date of the marketing authorization license of this innovator product, and we will not require to submit module 4. For module 5, it is the clinical study report. In this module, we submit the clinical study, we submit the bioavailability or the bioequivalence study performed for our products. We submit all the clinical listing in section 5.2, tabular listing for all the clinical studies. 5.3, we submit the clinical study report, and the last section, which is 5.4, literature references related to the performed clinical study of our product. By this, we have an overview for the 5 modules of the CTD, and we will start from this slide discussing what is the eCTD. eCTD is an interface for industry to agency transfer of regulatory information. So that means I need to submit the registration dossier. I am a manufacturing site for the final finished product, and I would like to submit my dossier in order to be evaluated to the health authority. So I need a specific software, and this software will enable me to publish my documentation, which will be evaluated by the health authority, and they will receive the soft copy of the documentation through my published dossier using a specific software which have a specific criteria, which is the XML backbone. So that means that eCTD is composed of directory structure, composed of content files, and composed of XML eCTD instance. So that means my company will need to purchase a specific software. My company can purchase several softwares. For example, there is a specific friendly eCTD creation tool, which is eCTD Manager, which is provided by Xtido. By eCTD Manager from Xtido, you will be able to upload your documentation in the software. And once you will upload the documentation, you will be able to submit it and to publish it to the health authority, and it will be delivered to the portal of the health authority using this creation tool for publishing the dossier. For the CTD, NeeS, and eCTD, the ICH has specified some criteria in order to prepare the Word documentation or prepare the PDF file which will be represented in NeeS or eCTD. The PDF version should be 5 or higher. The print area for CTD for pages should fit on a sheet of A4 and letter, 8.5 inch times 11 inch paper, and there must be a sufficient margin. In this margin, we have to comply to the ICH regulations, which mention that at least we should have a left margin with 2.5 centimeters on each page, which shall be provided to avoid any information to be missed from the left side. And for the header and footer, we need to assure that the used margins will enable the header and footer to be can be appear in an appropriate way without missing any information from the header and footer. For the font type and the font size, we need to use a compatible font type, which will be compatible with the PDF in case we will submit a NeeS or eCTD submission. So it is recommended to use Times New Roman, to use Corel or Arial as a most appropriate font type, which will be compatible with the Acrobat program. The font size, which is recommended by ICH, it is a 12-point font size. For the color of the font, we must submit all the text with black font color, and automatically once we will use any hypertext link, it will be reflected by a blue color. For the page orientation, we have to set the orientation, whether it will be portrait or landscape, according to the represented data in the each page. For the header and footer, we have to specify a unique header and footer for each submitted documentation for the health authority. Once we will need to submit any scanned documentation, we need to fulfill the requirements of ICH. We shall avoid scanning the documentation as much as possible. Once we will scan any document, we need to assure that the settings of the scanner is complying to ICH criteria. The first settings criteria is to adjust our scanner to scan the documentation with OCR, optical character recognition. So once we will scan any document, it can be easily readable and the text can be searchable, and it will not be scanned as an image. The methods for creating a PDF document and image, we shall take, excuse me, in this point, we shall confirm that the resolution of the document will be an appropriate resolution. we don't need to scan the documentation with high resolution. In this case, the file size will be high. So once I will upload it using the eCTD software, or once I will burn the file in the NeeS, it will not be burned. So I will have to comply to the ICH regulations for the resolution. So the maximum or the most appropriate resolution recommended by ICH to be 300 dpi dots per inch. From the other recommendations for the criteria of CTD and NeeS and eCTD, we shall follow up the file naming and the folder naming of the submitted dossier, whether it will be NeeS or CTD. So we shall use only lowercase. It isn't recommended to use uppercase for all the file and the directory names. We shall use the characters as letters from A to Z and the digits from 0 to 9, and to use only the sample hyphen. It isn't allowed to use any other samples except hyphens. As well, according to ICH guidelines, it isn't recommended to use any security settings or to use any password protection for the PDF files, which will be represented in the NeeS or represented in eCTD submission. So that means if I will represent to the health authority a NeeS dossier, I will have to create 5 folders. Each folder will be named with a specific abbreviation according to the ICH guidelines for eCTD specification. So I will name module 1 as M1, then M2, M3, M4, M5, using a lowercase letters and without using any space. And we will use the abbreviation. From where I will get these abbreviations, already ICH guidelines published a specific guidelines for naming the eCTD specification for submission. And each health authority has a specific guidelines for module 1. As we said, module 1 is the regional administrative information. For each health authority which is implementing eCTD submission, we have to check the guidelines in order to make sure that we are following up and complying to the naming of module 1 specified by the health authority. So as example for Gulf countries, this is a screenshot from the guidelines for module 1. This is the used folder name recommended to be used for NeeS and eCTD. And this is the same for module 2. And for module 3 and 4 and 5, we have to follow up the folder naming and the file naming according to the ICH guidelines and their proposed recommendations for the names of the folders and the names of the files and how it will be represented in the NeeS and eCTD file, which will be represented to the health authority. And as you see in these slides, this is a screenshot from the folder structure of module 3, and this is a screenshot for the final folder structure of module 4, and this is a screenshot from the folder structure of module 5. By this slide, we will go to the end of the presentation. So, Payan, if there is any additional inquiries by the colleagues, we can take their questions.
Okay, so our colleagues want to ask you by themselves, if you allow us. So, okay, my colleague now will unmute everyone. And everyone who had wrote a question in the chat box and we didn't answer it, so please raise your hand so we can answer your question. And please listen carefully so we don't have a replication for the questions, and we can use our time in an efficient way. The slides will be shared along with the let's say the links that Dr. Asmaa had told us about after the end of this session. Anyone has a question, please raise your hand. Okay, Muhammad Ibrahim.
Assalamu alaikum.
وعليكم السلام. تفضل.
Thank you, Dr. Bayan. Thank you, Dr. Asmaa, for the great presentation. I wanted to ask you which authorities in the Middle East or the Gulf area specifically still asking for the NeeS submissions?
Kuwait only in the Gulf countries, which is accepting NeeS, while the remaining Gulf countries, it is mandatory to submit eCTD.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Muhammad. Any other questions? Okay, Dr. Marwa.
Hi, Assalamu alaikum. I just want to check to have more details. What is meant by the XML backbone of the eCTD?
It's a specific structure for creating the eCTD software for the developer who will create the software. These are specific guidelines published by the ICH, how they can create the software to be used by any company. So the developers can go through these guidelines. They will specify the XML bones and with what is the specific criteria to be used to create this software. So it is a technical IT data related to the creation of the software itself.
Okay. So do you recommend any specific link, for example, if I want to have more information about the eCTD and the structure? Can you send a link, a specific link? Yeah, it would be great.
I will provide. Okay, I will provide you with a link related to Xtido. You can subscribe to their regular online sessions, and they provide a lot of information related to the how to create the eCTD and what is the available tools in their software. And if you will, for the eCTD softwares, you will find several data related to the software. And as well, I will provide you with some specific recorded sessions provided by Xtido related to the eCTD creation. So I will provide you by all these data in addition to the presentation.
Okay, thank you so much.
Can I ask everyone who asked his question to not raise your hand so I can see who else wanna ask? I think now we have Dr. Hussein. Dr. Hussein,
yes,
if you
sure.
want to ask Dr. Asmaa.
Thank you. I just want to check if it's a question related to case study, actually. If there is a change in the secondary packaging materials, what modules will be updated in the eCTD?
The secondary packaging material of the final finished product?
Yes.
For example, you are changing the label of the,
yes,
let's say, the glass bottle.
There will be a change in the artwork, like, for example, updating the registration number or adding a statement or something like this.
So that means you will modify the text in the artwork.
So there is no need to update. Yes.
You will represent only the product information data, which is represented in Module 1, according to the health authority, which section in Module 1 you will represent the product information, and there is no need to submit any modules 2 or 3 or 4 or 5. You will submit only the updated sections in Module 1 for the product information.
So there is no updates needed in the module 2.3 and 3, the quality overall summary.
For
and
your
quality.
case, you said that the change is related to the mentioned text in the label or the mentioned text in the carton box. So there is no change in the specification of the used packaging material. So in this case, you are notifying the health authority that you updated or changed it or modified the text which will be represented in the label. So you have to submit only the product information section in Module 1.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. And another question related to last question from another colleague. It's related to the XML file. How does the health authority receive the submitted file?
The health authority itself had a software at their site. So by this software, they accept receiving our published XML or unpublished dossier using the software. So we have a software and the same software, not the same type, but they have the same XML backbone software at their site in order to accept our published dossier.
Okay. Does Egypt has this mechanism?
No. For Egypt, you submit specific modules in CTD. There is no mandatory submission for eCTD, and there is no optional submission for eCTD here in Egypt.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Asmaa.
It's a pleasure.
Okay, we have Dr. Hadil. Dr. Hadil.
Hi. So my question is regarding the module 1. So I work in regulatory affairs for a medical and pharmaceutical supplies company, and usually this is my first pharmaceutical registration. I'm used to medical device registration. So I've learned about the eCTD, and I've learned that, like you said, module 1 is specific for administrative information for the country specific. So my country is Bahrain. So my question is, I faced an issue with a supplier who says that I should be as a distributor. Yeah, I'm a distributor, not a manufacturer. So I will be the one in the middle between the manufacturer and the authority. So they've asked me to fill in the module 1, but the way I see it, with the general requirements, almost like you mentioned, Dr. Asmaa. So usually in such a case, does the manufacturer fill in module 1? Because it's mainly stuff that are related to the market authorization holder, or is it, for example, the distributor's responsibility?
Okay, you have to go through the NEHRA guidelines, and once you will read the guidelines of NEHRA, you will be able to fill some documentation, like the cover letter, like the application form. But in order to fill this documentation, you need to gather an additional information. Who is the responsible entities for the manufacturing process? Who is the MIH? Who will be the responsible site for the quality control testing? Who will be responsible for the batch release? What is the source of the active ingredient? Who is the manufacturing site of the active ingredient? So you need to know a complete picture and complete knowledge about the drug substance and the drug product in order to be able to start filling module 1. So that's mean for the regulatory or the responsible person to prepare module 1, you have to gather some information related to the drug substance and to gather additional information related to drug product in order to be able to compile the administrative information. In addition, you will need to contact the company which will be responsible for the pharmacovigilance activity, who will be responsible to perform the pharmacovigilance activity. Is it the MIH, or is it you as a distributor or as an applicant? You will be responsible for the pharmacovigilance activity. So it is according to the agreement between the MIH and the manufacturing site and between the distributor. For sure, you will need a local pharmacovigilance QPV person at Bahrain who will be working with you as a distributor, but who will be responsible for the pharmacovigilance site master file and responsible for the all the activities related to the reporting of side effects. So it will depend and it will differ from case to case. You will need to gather the information from the company, who is the responsible person for the quality data, who is the responsible person for the non-clinical and clinical data, and you will attach their CVs and their declaration in the specific section in module 1. You will need to ask the manufacturing site to provide you, for example, with the product information and to provide you with the SMPC, PIL, and the artwork and the labeling information as well. You will need to to contact the manufacturing site and to provide you with the environmental risk assessment documentation. So that means you have to read the Module 1 regulations, and once you will read it, you will contact the responsible site for the manufacturing of the product, or the MAH, and you will ask them to provide you with some specific documents, and you have to read Module 3 and Module 4 and Module 5 in order to be able to fill Module 1 data, which is related to NEHRA, for example.
What about, this is a follow-up to my question, what about if I faced a case where the market, when we were registering, you know, in NHRA guideline, I'm not sure if you're aware, the first step is manufacturing site registration, then comes product registration. For manufacturing site registration, for example, we registered Company X as the manufacturing site and market authorization holder because that suits our case. But when it came to the eCTD file, I was informed that if we're going to use European countries as a reference, then in that case, there will be some difference. Like, for example, the market authorization holder will be a branch company or a substitute company. It won't be the same information that we provided in the manufacturing site registration. Is it really يعني هل بيعتمدوا على بعض ولا not
You will
necessarily?
need to submit a relation letter. What is the relation between these entities? It is a sister company. What is the organogram and the structure of the whole organization? You need to submit this documentation. And as well, you will need to submit actually what is the responsibility of each entity, the registered site during the process of the manufacturing site registration. Is the site responsible for any production or any activity in the authorization or any activity related to the production? So you have to go deeply through a regulatory due diligence. You have to specify what is the rule and responsibility of each entity and what is the relation between them in order to be able to represent all these data to the health authority and discuss with them your case. So you have to collect all the information for your case, and once you will collect it by documents, supportive documents, to support what is the relation and to support what is the rule of each entity, and then you will represent all the documentation to the health authority.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, now we have Dr. Dina.
Hello. Hi, everybody, and thank you for the presentation. It was very nice and useful. I have a simple question about appendices. What does it really mean, or more explanation about this?
For this section, which is 3.2a, this section is related to the biological products. The ICH guidelines specified for the biotechnology product to submit some additional documentation related to what is the used facilities and equipment during the manufacturing and the analytical process, what is the used excipients during the manufacturing process, what is the side effects and or the not just effects, what is the documentation related to the used materials during the manufacturing process. There is some specific additional data to be represented in this section. So there is a complete guidance from the ICH representing in details the additional data to be represented in the final 3.2a section related to the biotechnology products.
Okay, thank you so much.
And related to the safety evaluation, the advertisement safety evaluation data, whether the used material is complying to the safety guidelines specified by the ICH. So you have to refer to ICH and read more details about needed information for the biotechnology product.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Okay, now we will be having the question of Dr. Nasima. Dr. Nasima. Dr. Nasima. I think she's not hearing us. Anyone else who want to ask anything? Any other questions? Dr. Nasima, do you want to ask Dr. Asmaa? Dr. Nasima, can you hear us? I think there's an issue with her mobile.
A question.
Dr. Nasima, can you hear us? Dr. Asma, can you hear anything?
Shall I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, now we can hear you, yes.
Yeah. Good evening, ma'am. This is a stupendous presentation from your side. Thanks. Thank you so much. I have a question regarding the GHC. Once a product is registered in the GHC, can it be marketed in entire GCC?
Yes, it can be marketed, but you have to submit the marketing authorization license granted from GHC, and you will submit additional data according to each Gulf country. For example, you have to submit the marketing authorization you granted from GHC to United Arab Emirates or to Kuwait or to Qatar, and you will submit additional documentation related to Module 3 for the quality documentation, and you will grant the license within few days or maximum within 30 days. You will grant the license in order to launch your product in this specific territory related to the Gulf countries.
Okay, I have one more questions. Like eCTD, you said like we will publish the dossier. So where will we publish the dossier? And after publishing, the ministry can, I mean, regulatory authorities can review it. Could you please elucidate on this?
Actually, I cannot get your question. How you will publish the eCTD?
Yes, yes. Publish.
Let's simplify the eCTD and the publishing process. All of us use Google Drive. For Google Drive, you create folders and subfolders, and each folder you upload some specific documentation. Then you can share the link with your colleagues in order to download the dossier.
Okay.
It is the same idea. You will upload the dossier in a specific software. It is whether it will be a cloud system or you will install the software like Xtdo at your device. Once you will install the software, you will be able to log in using a specific username and a specific password. And once you will be able to reach the final eCTD structure, for example, for United Arab Emirates. You will upload Module 1 documentation according to the regulations of UAE, and these regulations are represented in the final structure, which is finally prepared by Xtdo, and you will find the structure of Module 1, and you will upload each section and each document in Module 1, and the same for Module 2, 3, 4, 5. Once you will finalize the uploading of all your PDF files or all your JPG or Word files, you will finally publish the dossier in order to be represented in the final format, which is the XML backbone. This XML backbone will be represented to the health authority, and they will be able to read the file from their installed software at their side, and they will evaluate the published and the uploaded documentation from your side, and they will revise Module 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 documentation uploaded from your side. So it is similar to the Google Drive. You have a cloud system or you have an installed software at your device, and you will upload the documentation in a specific format, like for Word file. In order to open the Word file, you will need to uninstall the Microsoft Office Word. Then you will be able to open the Word file, the same for Excel, and there is a specific extension for the Word, which is DOC, and there is a specific extension or a specific terminology for the software, which is the XML backbone. So it is a tool which will support us to publish the dossier in order to be revised and to be delivered to the health authority, and they can revise the published dossier.
Profound thanks, ma'am. Thank you so much.
With pleasure.
Hello?
Yes, hello.
Yes, I'm Nasima, a greeting from Algeria.
Hello, Nasima.
Thanks a lot for the presentation. Dr. Asmaa, my question is for the 3.2a section about facilities and equipment. Is the writing of details depending on dosage forms? I mean, if our finished product is solid form or parenteral form, should we compile details about unit air treatment, purified water production installation, or can we only compile the details about manufacturing equipment only?
As we said, that 3.2a section is related to the biotechnology product. So if your product is a biotechnology product, you have to submit this section, 3.2a1, which is the facility and equipment. And you will submit all the related data to the facilities used during the manufacturing and the synthesis process of your biotechnology product, whether it will be a biological or biosimilar products. You will represent the used facilities and equipment during the manufacturing and the analysis of your biotechnology product.
Okay, thanks a lot. So for generic product, I mean, like solid forms or parenteral forms, we don't need to compile this section?
Generic pharmaceutical product, you don't need to compile this section. If it is a biotechnology, biological or biosimilar, you have to represent this section.
Thanks a lot for your answer.
With pleasure.
Hi, Dr. Asmaa.
Bayan, I think you are muted, Bayan. Yes,
hello. Hi, Dr. Asmaa.
I'm hearing you.
Dr. Asmaa, yes.
Yeah, I appreciate Dr. Asmaa, your effort and your presentation. I have one question. The ongoing stability study require in GCC registration?
Okay. For the stability study, let's say that we need to submit a finished stability study. That means we need to submit the stability study for the long-term and accelerated conditions till the last interval of the proposed shelf life. Most of the companies, they don't have a complete or the finished stability study. So in case we will submit an ongoing stability study, so that means I will submit the available stability testing till the interval, let's say 12 or 24, and I will submit a commitment letter that once I will finalize the stability till the last interval, I will provide the health authority with the stability testing in order to prove that my product is stable till the specified shelf life.